Sunil, and thanks Daham and the team for inviting me to be a panelist. I think fundamentally what I would like to drive the discussion is to bring a parallel from an investor perspective, developer perspective, and also a traditional landlord perspective on the commercial market and its differentiation with relevance to the residential market. I think that's very important to understand what the growth prospects are. Because we've seen numerous newspaper articles talking about the real estate bubble, etc. But I have a slightly different perspective, so I'll set the precedence with relevance to that. I think fundamentally, if you are looking at a commercial building, it's pretty much a balance sheet item. I think Hiroshini will definitely talk about that, because if you are an investor, you are definitely looking at a discounted cash flow, continuous returns over a period of time, and also the capital appreciation to take slightly into effect with the rental yields. Now, the residential market, of course, you have a quicker exit, provided that you have the right price point, and it's much more easy to look at the foreseeable return. Now, I tend to agree with what Michael said. The future of work is changing, and there are some fundamental factors which are affecting that change in the future. And the first and foremost thing is technology. Gone are the days where people have to typically come to office and work 8-9 hours a day. Now you got your iPad, you got your mobile phone, you got your smart device, you can work from anywhere. Now, technology alone won't help you in that. There is also a breaking down of the traditional business models. Gone are the days where you would have a meeting, typically get all your sales executives to come to one forum and have a chat. Now they do it in a much more collaborative way. So I think when Access Towers comes with their club lounge, you'll suddenly see almost all of Colombo having a meeting in a club lounge.
I hope so.
We'll ensure so, to put it into perspective. But then having said that, the fundamental question, and if I dig a little bit deeper into what Sunil mentioned on what's going to be the future of the commercial market, and my estimate is the demand is going to outgrow the supply of it, at least in the short to medium term. And there are some fundamental drivers to that. Just look at the IT industry. Sluscom predicts that by 2022, it will be a $5 billion business, requiring almost 200,000 employees. Now, how we are going to find the employees might be a slightly different scenario. So it might be a good solution for that. But if you look at the moving average from that perspective, each year they need to recruit at least 15,000 people. The Sri Lankan and international university system currently churns out only 4,500 IT graduates. So assuming they're going to meet their numbers and you keep an average of 50 square foot per person, that gives you the foreseeable demand each year for the next 5 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sunil, but I think last year in 2016, the total inventory in commercial real estate which came into the market, inclusive of Parkland, was about 600,000 square foot in Colombo. Which means if we have to meet those numbers purely for the IT industry, we need to almost quadruple the inventory of commercial real estate which we have, just to ensure that we meet the current 4.5% GDP growth rate that the central bank has talked about. So if this growth rate goes up to 6%, you suddenly see the automatic growth coming in. So I think I would like to set the tone based on that, on the opportunity. Now, how you realize that opportunity is what's going to be more interesting, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Sure. Thanks, Nirmal. So the question really is, we are talking about growth in the ITES sector, which is a very price-sensitive business. Let me put a question across to Hiroshini. You've seen your organization is not new into the leasing business. With the success of Parkland, we'd like to ask you a couple of questions, probably beneficial for all of us. Who are the type of clients who are actually looking for space? Who are the kind of clients who came to you looking for space? Was there any kind of resistance when we were throwing open rentals and rental figures? Probably once I get an opinion from you, we'll throw the same question open to Ashil as well. What has been the reason behind the success of Parkland? You probably filled up the space in about 14 months' time. almost. Yeah.
I think we were quite lucky in coming out at the right time because in Colombo, A-grade buildings were scarce, and we just completed the building at the right time. And specifically, I think we outstood the norms of construction and the facilities. We as Ashela mentioned, now Ashela also has taken a lot of things into consideration when putting up the building. We also did a lot of research and ensured that we had all the cost-saving facilities coming in, energy efficiencies, and the space. What we noted what was available in Colombo was the ability for a tenant to utilize the space was restricted because of the way the building was done. So we researched and we ensured that we met all those requirements. And the other part that was not looked into by the landlords at that time was the facilities that the workforce needed, especially washroom, the recreation areas, the outdoor areas. I think you have exceeded us when you have designed your building.
Could you tell?
So I think we have set the benchmark for the new constructions coming.
Definitely.
So I think that is what that is the success of our building, and I think the location. No other location can say that they are in Colombo and have the peaceful environment that we have. So I think we are our asset is our location and the facilities. So that was our success story.
So location. So real estate is quite synonymous to location. Who are the kind of clients? What are the kind of industry sectors that you have?
We have a large range of clients. I think Regis was is one of our clients, and so we have multinational startup companies, just starting up companies, because they also want a location and an address, and they need to establish themselves to any customers that they will be meeting. So Parkland has given them that opportunity, because otherwise it is either World Trade Center or Access and maybe HNB. So now they have Parkland.
Ashil, what do you have to say?
In regards to the industries that have come to us, we've had a wide range from multinationals to top corporates in the country, but BPOs, ICT sector, but more, I'd say if I had to pinpoint a specific sector, I'd say it's in the ICT and the BPO sector. Because of that, as you mentioned, the energy efficiency and the air conditioning technology. Because as a ICT organization, you can have a high density flow, ensuring that that your carbon dioxide levels are monitored and you have a significant volume of fresh air and conditioned air pumped into the office space. So that is vital when you're having a high volume, a high density flow. If you're having a BPO or a ICT with, let's say, a flow of 100 people. So you need to ensure that your tenant space has a significant amount of fresh air and your carbon dioxide levels are also monitored. So these air conditioning technologies that we brought in also cater to those features. Because of that, we've had a lot of interest coming in from a lot of ICT organizations and BPOs.
See, in our observation, we found a lot of companies, because due to lack of good quality office spaces in CBD and off CBD locations, keeping the desire of being close to business hubs in mind, people have started operating out of houses and more of unorganized real estate. Obviously, this kind of real estate is cheaper, lower in quality and environment. So when people migrate from this kind of an environment to grade A office space like a Parkland or a Access Tower, there could be a huge jump in the rentals. how do businesses, manage this additional expense? How are they able to bite into this additional expense that?
Actually, if you look at the numbers, if you really do the numbers, grade A office space, even though the base number looks big, it is actually not so. Even though I'm maybe contradicting Michael's point, but Michael's perspective is focused on startups. But if you actually look at companies who are operating from maybe older buildings where the energy efficiency is not there, where the electricity consumptions are, because now we have all LED lighting, and the centralized chiller is of the latest technology. So as Ashila said, I'm sorry,
That's fine.
as Ashila said, the energy costing is very less. But when you operate, because we have similar properties, we have older buildings where we operate from. So we know what the cost of electricity, air conditioning is for those buildings and the maintenance. Now in a A-grade complex where it is a multi-tenanted building, all the common services are provided for. And then we have the economies of scale on that. So it is, and you are only being charged for the carpet rate, where it is your usable space. So you are actually not incurring so much, but it is very difficult, it is difficult to convince the client. You need to actually, present it to them, explain to them, and then only you can advise them,
So the weightage for the value that they get out of this additional rent they are paying is far superior to compared to what they are, where they are currently operating.
Definitely, because
Which is the reason for the decision.
definitely, because now when you take your customer or your client to office building complex like Parkland, it automatically gives you that effect. You are in an established
Better
location and you have that prestige. So I think that also counts when you are doing it for any customer to get their confidence up.
There's a particular point that you referred to. It's a very interesting subject. It's in our observation again. It's not only startups that take up serviced offices and business hubs. The established companies, Regis, Nirmal, and I have observed established multinational companies moving into business centers and serviced offices. What's your perspective on that?
I think if I just continue where Hiroshi left, what Hiroshi actually gave us a typical landlord or building owner's perspective. Let me now just tell you the customer perspective typically. So I think, let's be very honest here, Sri Lanka, while it is evolving from a mid-level country, some of the business philosophies and practices are very much outdated. We still have Sri Lankan companies wanting to have a very large cubicle for a CEO. That's the power distance.
Toilets.
The executive toilets, a special key for them, just for the executives. And then a very large pantry area to show that, okay, you can come and have your meals, etc. You suddenly realize that your floor space is very inefficient. The research shows us that more than 60% of the office space that you pay for on a rental basis is severely underutilized. So you're in effect actually paying rent for something that you don't use, but you want to portray to the outer world. The chances are that you're portraying it to the outer world in a concept of not being in an A-grade building because you want to bring your rental costs down. The notion what Hiroshi very rightly said is they feel that the cost is much more. Your rental cost from say a Colombo 2 house will be almost 2.5 times when it comes to a commercial building, when you're looking at a typical house to building ratio. Now the problem is when you're inefficient, you're suddenly paying for something that you don't value. And any CFO would say that a good 70%, so that's 60% on rent, unutilized, 20% coming on your energy, would be your two biggest cost items in your P&L. Now, in order to mitigate that, I think we've seen a lot of companies and a lot of multinationals coming into Sri Lanka are now changing these practices. They're trying to make their businesses more efficient, space more efficient, And you suddenly see that when buildings are created, Marshall very clearly mentioned that he has 3 different formats for each floor. And I believe at Parkland there is four different formats that you can select from. You can actually pay for the space that you utilize. And that's where the full service companies like JLL and so forth have to also get slightly more involved in educating the market in terms of how to get the best returns out of the space that they are utilizing. The second part of the issue is, if I piggyback on what Michael showed, yes, there is definitely demand between the 1,000 to 4,000 square foot office space range. Now, how do you cater towards that? Because if you are a typical A-grade building owner, unless and otherwise you have really good scale from wall to wall, you will also have an efficiency issue in terms of, because a typical landlord would not want to manage 100 clients in a 10-story building. It's an administrative nightmare, and that's not the main business. On top of that, the Sri Lankan landlords, and I always tell this to new landlords, and I mean them, we still have that little bit of that Mudalali mentality, the shop owner mentality, where you give a place on rent typically for 10 years, that also to a bank, and go on a 10% increase every 2 years, and you're quite happy about it because it's one tenant. So you're not worried about the maintenance of the building, how efficient it could be, because you're just worried about your cash returns coming in. But what a landlord doesn't realize is that if they have a much more flexible model, they can derive much more benefits out of it. The building gets looked after much more better, and a professional facilities provider like JLL or anybody in the market can add more value even to an older building and derive better returns out of it. So actually it's in a congruent that the commercial real estate market is. So there is little bit of new age thinking, but very old age practices. So how to bring that fine balance is where the Sri Lankan market is at the moment.
Great, thanks. Michael, your perspective, startups versus established companies moving into serviced offices, co-working spaces, what do you have in mind?
Absolutely, and I think we're seeing a mixture of both coming in. Startups, which was my passion to do something for the startup community, but also very much larger companies, established companies that want that flexibility, that signing a long lease and committing to a fixed amount of space over a long period of time just doesn't give companies that flexibility. So I think Nimal's absolutely right. You need that new age thinking coming in, where people say, look, okay, I need 1,000 square feet now. Now, in 6 months' time, I might need 2,000 or 3,000, or I might need 500 square feet. And I think we're taking the risk, and we're happy to work with building owners and landlords to say, you don't want that administrative problem in that thing. We'll manage the centre, the business centre within that building for you. We'll deal with the 10, 15 companies and subdivide the office as and when. We'll cover all the operating expenses of that. But we'll give the business community the sizes of units that we believe is in demand. Those people that want 9,600 square feet for 20 years will sign up to the wonderful building that Access Towers is. I went and looked around it myself. Beautiful building, and somebody wants that, will want that. But if somebody wants 1,000 square feet or 800 square feet, that option isn't currently available. So it is a bit of a conundrum. How do you give a space accommodation to people, not just small companies? We need to lose this sort of idea, it's just small companies, big companies, international companies that very much are eyeing Sri Lanka as a way forward. We're getting inquiries from foreign businesses that want to base their businesses in our business hubs because we're giving them that flexibility that isn't there. And I think there needs to be a change in thinking. I also think that the CBD location is changing. If you look at where a lot of the apartment blocks are developing, particularly in Colombo 3, Colombo 4, 5, there are thousands of accommodation units coming up. And I think Colombo will follow the way that most major cities have gone, not just London, Singapore, KL, where the CBD changes and people don't want to travel into Fort every day. And the traffic, if you go along the Gore Road, anything from basically MC onwards, it starts to become a snail trail and you can take 45 minutes to do that last couple of kilometers. So I believe that the central business district or the business district will move out into the suburbs where people are living. And that's where we're talking at 3 properties in Kolkati that we'll be looking to develop, and probably 1 in Colombo 5 that we'll look to develop as business centres, because I believe the shift will happen.
So, so scalability and flexibility is probably the prime factors for their decision making.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ashal, smaller sizes of requirements. So you said your minimum sizes are at about 2,000 or so.
2,560.
How quickly did you fill up these spaces?
Mostly, in our experience, we've had most inquiries have been coming in for larger spaces. Smaller spaces, we've gotten inquiries, but unfortunately, we don't have the space to get them. So we've gotten majority of my, for example, from platforms like Lanka Property Development now, we've been getting a lot of inquiries for smaller spaces, 1,000 square foot spaces, 5-man work operations, or 10 to 15 groups. But the thing is, the smallest space that we have is, we had a 1,000 square foot space that got reserved sometime 2 weeks ago. But the thing is, when you have like you mentioned, when you have more tenants in the building, it's very difficult to maintain and manage the entire operation. For example, now in Tower 1, if you have, let's say for the 6,000 square foot of rentable space in Tower 1, you have, let's say, 6,000 square foot spaces. It's very difficult to managing their utilities, to managing their their services, then also having a footfall as such coming into the building and all. So we're having different business operations that are happening. So things get a little complicated when you have smaller business units in one large tower.
So on the contrary, does it get inefficient for a large size business to move into a serviced office? Is it that perception or not?
No, I think Sunil, it also goes back into what your overall business objective is. Now, like Michael mentioned, if you have a multinational, you say based in Ho Chi Minh City, we all know how Vietnam today is both in terms of economic growth and the business fundamentals. So if they want to move their next hub to Sri Lanka, provided that you overcome all the bureaucratic hassles of setting up a business, once you come into Sri Lanka, you suddenly see that your options are very limited to build a business and infrastructure at the quickest possible time and at the lowest cost. So in that scheme of things, a serviced office concept would work well, irrespective of how you want to term it. I'll call it flexible working, because you're flexible in terms of deciding the tenure and how quickly you want to scale. Now the issue is, on the previous question on Ashel, I think he probably had a subtle answer to the question as well. If you look at both the lady and the gentleman, both their buildings will be 95% if not 100% occupied very soon. So all the A-grade buildings are occupied. So technically you have no other space to go. So the chances are if somebody else tomorrow puts up a A-grade building, you're probably going to sell it off. But that's not where the business growth is going to come from. So the next phase of growth is going to come up from the startups, the small to medium-sized enterprises of Sri Lanka who wants to go global. They've suddenly realized now, better late than never, that Sri Lanka is so much of a smaller market. And the geopolitical climate, regardless of whether it's Brexit or the Trump Towers, which is calling the shots, the ecosystem of how business is going to happen is going to change. And as a result, you'll suddenly see that we'll once again be back in a scenario where the demand supersedes supply at short bursts. And at that point of time, you'll suddenly see the cost of doing business actually doubling, because you don't have space. You need to probably go into a A-grade building that you shouldn't be and paying more, or you have to go to a B or C-grade building because the A-grade buildings are full, and you're probably spending more on managing the property. But if there's one key learning, and if there's any future property developers, investors or landlords, is that try to move away from the typical leasing model and somehow incorporate into your business units a flexible workspace department who will actually look after it, take 1 or 2 floors and manage the smaller time demand. Because the benefits are going to far supersede the cost initially, simply because you'll have a scalable aspect of it. You'll get these small timers suddenly getting a big contract and wanting more space, and they're not going to change from a place to place. So instead of looking at it being a hassle, I understand it's a different profit center concept, but if you can build your own in-house team, that's one organic way of doing it. But the more inorganic and less stress is, get the experts to do it, who's already doing it. Collaboration is the key.
Good. I have a couple of more questions and then we'll probably expose the panelists to the audience. Parking is becoming from need to greed, going by the ratio that Nirmal said, 50 square feet for a person, but what we're offering is 1000 square feet for for a slot and 800 square feet for a slot. Is that going to become a separate business model by itself, sustainable business model?
Exactly.
Any answers? Anyone?
No, it's not. It is actually, parking is very expensive. The cost of putting up space for parking is very expensive. And but it's a need. But so like as developers we are trying to manage it, but we can never meet the expectation.
So your parking lots are full. You have more than what you're actually offering? Need for more than what you're offering?
Of course, I mean, any tenant they are taking.
My question was, if someone wants to has a piece of real estate tucked away in CBD but not on the main roads, if they can build a parking lot there, would that become a successful business model?
Definitely, but it has to be near the A-grade building.
Exactly. Location is key again. There's no point having a parking.
Yeah, the shuttering, then clients are not
But
happy
it's
with
a
that.
point to ponder, isn't it? I mean, instead of talking about just creating office spaces, if you're able to create, get people to work and for drive into work and comfortable parking spaces, wouldn't that encourage businesses to remain in CBD?
Anybody representing the government? Is that in the forum? If they are not. I think most of the government departments are now going to move from the CBD area towards the outskirts of Colombo, and you'll probably see that most of those building and parking spaces going to be available. I tend to agree with Sunil. I think that's a fantastic business model to exploit here. Just imagine a typical scenario where even though it's not close to Colombo 2, we say you have a property in Colombo 7, and if a typical bus is converted into a mobile coffee shop, right, and transportation happens, you suddenly see business meetings happening even in that shuttle bus. Now these are concepts which are coming up in Taiwan, it's happening in Prague now to a certain degree, and we could learn from those best practices. And we got so much of SLTB buses, very inefficient and so forth, but it's just a matter of a foreign operator. The issue with Sri Lanka is that we want to play second fiddle. So we want somebody to come and take the first move advantage in terms of telling us how to run businesses. But if there is no space going to happen and the infrastructure cannot be coming up so quickly, then you might need to look at creative choices. So even at Regis, we very much looked into the options of even having concierge services, valet parking services, because there's no way otherwise that a typical building can accommodate. And the chances are, because our infrastructure is not ready for the 21st century, but at the same time we are moving from a middle income country, even a starting employee just after graduation is looking at buying a vehicle, if not a motorbike. Where do you park this? And we still have a long way to go in terms of cycling to work. I know there are a lot of people trying to encourage that. But that entire ecosystem has to be looked into. But for somebody willing to invest in the in running an operating model for parking, I think there's a good opportunity there to explore.
Moving slightly out of CBD, I have one very intrigued question that I've been not been able to answer. We are talking about the ICT and the BPO business, contributing to the GDP and growth coming in from the direction. I have a serious doubt whether these companies who are growing steadily are going to be able to afford CBD office spaces. I have a feeling that there's a huge opportunity in affordable office space, sector. What it is to the luxury apartments and the budget apartments, I think there is going to be a need or a requirement or a potential market for cheaper office spaces outside CBD. What do you think about that? Do you think landlords will come forward to provide cheaper office spaces? Would you get into that business?
We are contemplating, because we do see that, especially and try to cater from the outskirts as well. We are currently we are seriously looking at.
So I'm quite
It
sure that
makes
there's
sense.
opportunity.
Yes.
Because clients, for example, who are operating out of Naval or Rajagiriya who are paying probably $1 per square foot, are probably not in a position to pay, suddenly jump to $2 per square foot. So I think there is an opportunity lying there because and these companies are really growing.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, in a nutshell, from my perspective, I see great opportunity in the commercial office sector. If any of you have any specific questions, the gentleman had some questions specific to access. I cut him off. I'm so sorry about it. So please, if anyone wants to have any questions answered, please feel free to ask.
Okay, then can we continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Could someone elaborate on the electrical systems and the electronic systems of the modern buildings? The number of plug points per table was just an example, and the ampere. I'm also interested in the type of television system you could use, centralized or not, and other computerized feature, energy efficient or whatever, computerized features, the electrical and electronic sides of the modern buildings.
Sure. So, do you mind if I go first? So, for access towers, basically we lease out rather an empty shell. So, as a tenant, you'll be doing your interior design and you'll be pulling out from our distribution boards how many plug points you want to whichever location. So, you're given that freedom. You're given the freedom to run your cabling, your ducting from the ceiling. You're given 3 feet from the false ceiling to the ceiling slab, or from the cement screening on the ground. So, you can cut in 30 millimeters for the screening from the ground as well. In regards to your question in terms of dialogue TV and fiber optic connectivity, our building complies with dialogue fiber optic connectivity as well as SLT. So again, as a tenant, what you need to do is just get a connection from the service provider. So the building is fitted out with the entire backbone. A tenant just needs to purchase the connection.
Any other computerized features, no? High-tech computerized features?
Well, could you elaborate a bit by high-tech computerized
Could
features?
anything, energy efficient features, opening doors, anything, operatable by the
BMS itself.
tab or something? Yes.
So on our building management system, it's developed in such a way that a tenant will be able to monitor how many units of electricity they are consuming, how many units of air conditioning they are consuming. The doors have their access control function to enable it as well. In terms of the lighting, it's an addressable IP lighting system. So each lighting has its own IP address. So for example, from your building management system itself, you can design it and program it in such a way that you can have certain, let's say you design it in such a way that you have certain cubicles around the glass facade. You can turn those lightings on at different times. You can have different images to it. You can have it turned on from a certain time. From, let's say you want it turned on from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. You can pre-program it according to the tenant's specifications.
So the building management systems typically offer these facilities, but since the landlords don't provide your interiors, the furniture is not actually offered by most of the landlords. So your plug points, to answer specifically to that question, is part of the interiors that would be built by the occupiers themselves. That's how it is. Anything you would like to add? Yeah, covered, right? So and your fire protection systems, your common area lighting, the lifts, all these are controlled by the building management systems. In most grade A buildings, these building management systems are available. It is moving from passively electronic to very actively electronic these days. To answer your specific question, managing controls with the help of a tab, having repeater panels on each floor, these things are becoming more common and becoming a necessity these days. And most of it are oriented towards providing safety to the occupiers.
Over here, what is the average range per square foot that you guys are charging right now?
For access towers,
Yeah.
If you're taking a 2-tenant or a 3-tenant space, it goes at 265 rupees and 275 rupees per square foot. That is including your service charges. That will include the maintenance of the common areas and the lift lobbies. So everything else as a tenant, like your electricity, your air conditioning, will be charged separately, and each tenant space will have its own meter. So you are charged according to the units that you are consuming, and you will be charged standard CB retail rates.
Understood. You specified saying that this was for a specific category. If you're taking out the whole office, for instance.
If you're taking a full floor, it'll be at 240 rupees per square foot. But you'll be charged for your, now basically if you're charging 265 rupees a square foot, you'll only be in charge for your carpentable area. But when you take a full tenant space, the floor area is a little different. So you'll be charged for everything within your space because you'll be getting exclusivity. You'll be charged 240 rupees per square foot, but you'll be charged for the toilet area as well. Because as a full tenant space, that toilet area will be utilized purely by the single tenant.
Alright, understood. Thanks.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
My question goes to Dr. Nirmal. You shared with us a key piece of advice that we should move away from the traditional leasing model to a more in-house workspace department. And could you share with us like some brief ways how we could execute that, than go with an expert? Because young youthful people, I mean, we may not be very financially wealthy to go through that service. But what are other ways which we could meet that market gap?
Okay, so fundamentally, if I have to answer that question, it will take a good 3 to 4 hours of management consulting time. The reason why I'm trying to say is, if I got your question right, I did not mention that you need to move away from traditional leasing to flexible working. What I mentioned was you need to probably understand your business a little bit more better. What are your cost structures? Is this adding value to your business? Do you have the capability and the team to run things which is not your core business? For example, if you are an IT expert, real estate may not be your forte. So which is where you probably need to leverage from companies who are already doing it, or from experts who already have a little bit of know-how on guiding you. But fundamentally is looking at your business model. Is space important? Is the cost of commuting high for your staff? For example, if somebody is coming from Talawatugoda to Fort, you are looking at minimum 3 hours of commuting time up and down. If you're lucky in today's context to get 7 hours of sleep, that's basically 10 hours out of your 24 hours in a typical day. And gone are the days that, unless you're in the public sector, you can clock off in 6.5 to 8 hours. So essentially, you got no time. So the cost of commuting is something most startups do not look into. Now, what's the flip side of it? Your retention becomes an issue. You can have a brilliant idea, but you need somebody to go and market it. And when we speak to startups, the biggest issue is either they don't know how to market an idea, or they're too dependent on technology alone, where the fundamentals of business is forgotten. So, long story short, look at your business model, see whether location is important for you to run day-to-day business. If it is, then you need to look at Colombo city or hub location. And number 3, see in terms of how you can minimize the focus on real estate and focus more on your core business. I think those will be the top 3 tips that I could give you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Any other questions?
If I could just add on that, you're absolutely right. We found when we took the building in Nogiguda that we thought, just near the Marihana Jubilee Post Junction, we thought that it would be a problem being that far out of town. Actually, it's proven to be a tremendous advantage. That people are saying, do you know what, I used to lose a day, an hour, hour and a half each way every day travelling from Rajagiriya, Barela, Batumula into Colombo. To do what? I don't meet customers. It's just to have a fancy address, to be honest. Particularly in the BPO, and particularly those that are working online internationally, they're getting a much better lifestyle, a much more efficient day, and a lower rent by being out of town. So I know Regis has got 2 businesses in Nawala, and I think the areas outside should not be forgotten for those businesses that don't need to be in World Trade Center or Parklands or Access. If you do, you have to pay the price to be in those locations. But I think you're right, when you look at the business and say, why do I need to be there? For once a year, twice a year that I meet a visitor, it's an awful lot of money to pay with all respect, But if you need your business to be there, then it needs to be there. And I think when we look at our own business models, we see that actually, if we look at internationally how businesses have developed, they all develop by moving out of the city into the suburbs where people are living and getting that quality of life back, particularly the traffic in Colombo, getting that quality of life back and regaining your life instead of commuting.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we can wrap this up. I have one last query. It's probably a sensitive question, but this is more directed towards encouraging more investors. The yields on the office business, a smile on everyone's face. We've been hearing from landlords, we've been trying to motivate landlords to move away from residential business and invest in long-term, yielding assets. So our estimate is roughly in the 4 to 6% range per annum in CBD or CBD locations. Do you agree with that? Has your businesses, yielded that kind of results? Are you happy or probably more? Hiroshini first. Yeah, in this order.
Yes, I think your tentative rates are pretty much accurate. It's a highly capitalized business, so you really need to have the set behind you to back the business. But yes, it's a very stable business to be in, and for any investor, end of the day, whatever happens, you have the asset and you are able to sell it and cash it.
I think from my perspective, if you don't have a payback of 7 to 10 years, don't get into a commercial building.
Please don't.
Regardless of whatever the digits the returns are. I think that's primary, very, very essential. You probably make better returns in the outskirts than in a highly dense Colombo environment, simply because the market has not matured to the level which is status quo on real estate perspective. The second aspect of looking at returns is that moving away from a traditional leasing model and incorporating your business model to have flexible models also, which means that you occupy very much like a hotel where you get certain clients coming for the day, month and year, otherwise you have your traditional longer term clients. So you've got a better portfolio balancing. It goes back to my original point where landlords probably have an opportunity to go either organically or inorganically from that aspect. The last point I'll probably conclude with is that there is definite opportunity and good returns in the commercial space. However, remember it's a balance sheet item. So if your capital returns are not coming in with your investment, then it's really nice to show a bank or an investor. But if you can't create a discounted cash flow with a payback of 7 to 10 years, there is much more better businesses to invest in. I think that's the trade-off that one would have to look into. In the immediate next 5-year paradigm, I think Sri Lanka has got wonderful opportunity to get better than market returns. In comparison to our regional markets, I compare Colombo with Hyderabad, not Mumbai or Delhi, in terms of the opportunity and the status in which the real estate is. We are still about 30% discounted rate in terms of real estate with Hyderabad. So that shows the opportunity in which the country can go to. All what we need is more people like people on my either side to invest on buildings. And if you're an individual who's got an asset which is not giving you a return, talk to some people and see how you can get a better return.
It might be relatively simpler for people who have been holding commercial real estate for a while now and not unleash the entire potential of the property, rather than looking to acquire something at today's price and trying to get returns in the next 7 to 10 years. But maybe an education for people who have been holding assets without unleashing their original potential. Michael, your business, are you making money?
We're getting there. We're getting there. We've made a long-term investment, like you said, not in it for the short term. Looking to be here long term. I'd like to retire here as an elderly person, so I'm not a foreigner who's looking to make a quick buck and get out. But I think our model is slightly different, where we're looking at businesses that want to release that cash from their balance sheet. They may be in a building, but actually they don't need to own that building. They want to have that flexibility and release the cash back into the business and just pay for what they need when they need it. So I think we give the businesses the alternative, whether they're a startup or an existing business.
So on the other side, we've discussed this before. Are you open to working with investors who have some capital to create this opportunity for them to yield returns? Are you open to discussing that?
Absolutely.
I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that we made as a very conscious business decision is we don't want to be business owners. We don't want to building owners. We don't want to tie up our capital in very expensive real estate. So we're very happy to work with partners, whether it's the A-grade officers, to create these incubator floors, which are very valuable for growing tenants in the future, or other people that have got property, like you say, they want to release the value on it, but they don't want to actually get into the business of running a 24/7 business centre. That's what I built, a very talented team of people that can do that, and we're very open-minded to having a joint venture with people, whether it's on a revenue share model or whether it's on an equity share model. Very open-minded to that. We've got 2 or 3 discussions going on, 2 with foreign investors, 1 with a local investor that want to scale us very, very quickly and to take business hubs outside of Sri Lanka. But my passion at this stage, in this year to 18 months, is to develop the 10 centres in Sri Lanka, which I said I would do. But yes, very open-minded having a conversation.
Fantastic. Access and Readyware, please let us know what would motivate you to start creating IT parks outside the city. We're really ready to help you with that. But we'd like to see people like you with success stories, creating more success stories, creating more spaces. I have a friend from India who likes to ask a question.
So we represent a company called CyberCity from Hyderabad. We are basically looking at coming in as an investor or as well as a developer in Colombo. We are primarily looking at commercial space as well as housing. So what's your advice, Sunil, which route we take?
Again, like Nirmal said, I probably need about 3-4 hours. So there are opportunities available in the market.
What's your advice, first of all? Is the right time for us to come in?
Yeah, commercial real estate is absolutely the right time.
What more do we take? Partner with existing developers, landowners?
I think as a foreign investor, first thing is for you to explore opportunities of doing business on your own. There are partners available, there are investors available who have the capital and require the expertise of running that business, which is probably what they would welcome from you. You can partner with local developers as well. Access is partnering with another multinational company in creating a small residential, a large residential project. So partnerships are pretty open, but you could explore this by yourself as well. Both options are open.
Okay, so we have more opportunity to meet you all.
Definitely.
Okay, how about affordable housing sector?
There is, we believe that there is opportunity in that segment as well. It's also in the lower middle income segment. We believe that there is opportunity.
So we catch up soon.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. So thank you so much, one and all, for coming here, sparing time on Saturday and patiently hearing us out. Thanks to Lanka Property Web for creating this platform and getting us seated out here and allowing us to discuss. Thanks so much to the panelists for sparing their time and sharing their insights. Thank you.
Thank you.